I'm a bit unorthodox when I introduce people because usually I know them, and if I don't know you, then I'll read your bio. But um, Ryan and I have known each other for a couple of years now, and we have a lot of mutual friends. I think in the Silicon Slopes area out of Utah, where there's a lot of cool things happening. And Ryan has gone over to Sodexo when had the opportunity to move Sodexo into a modern era of selling and really look at some of the things that have been learned over in the tech space and what works to accelerate growth in the tech area, and is moving that into a non-tech space. And so I know there's a lot of executives that that have that I've talked to, and this is the session I've suggested that they all come to, that they listen to Ryan in this transformational journey, because I'm sure there's a lot of things you've learned in the process of what you've done, both success and failure. So we're all looking forward to hearing from you today, Ryan. Ryan is with Sodexo. He's a global sales leader and been with them for several years and has been working to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of his organization. And I'll turn the time over to Ryan.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, it's quite the introduction, and it's a real pleasure to be here. I've cared much about UTD, and I've gotten to know the program in a very positive and unique way. And there's just some fantastic things going on. I graduated from Weber State University for my undergrad, and that was one of the early places where there was a sales concentration, actually a sales degree on campus. And so I know what it means to sort of move that into the academic level and take it to the next level. And, you know, I would dare say UTD's surpassed it. Don't tell my Weber State friends, Dr. Dover, but I think you've surpassed what they've got going on up there and built just a fantastic program. Give me just 1 second. I think I'm going to share some slides, and I was working on them right before I got on here. I was presenting somewhere else. In fact, I was just wrapping up another presentation, and I think I've closed it. So hold on, let me just get this back open here. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to share some things on screen, and then I'm going to come off the screen and just talk. But overall, I love revenue. I love what we've done here at Sodexo. But I've also loved what I've done at other companies, and at the end of the day, I love revenue operations. I love that art of winning a deal, the negotiation. I love building teams and organizing new structures. I love sales productivity, revenue productivity. I love enablement. The whole concept of sales enablement is just so fascinating to me. How do you actually get people to be more productive? So you take a fixed asset and you say, okay, these are my most valuable asset, or my people. How do I actually get them to improve? I'm going to start with the story. So let me just make sure my screen is sharing, because I want to show a visual. So let's see, share screen, desktop, click share. Zoom makes it so easy. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I love this time of year. In fact, today is the state championship for the state of Utah in track and field. All of our 5A, 6A is how we sort of grade our schools and group them. And the state championship is today. And my son, I'm happy to report he's in 4 events today for the championship, and could win, first place in 3 of them. So that's his hope and that's his goal. But it took me back to a time when I actually was in track, and I ran in the state championship, and I ran hurdles. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I feel like I peaked in high school, but that's a whole different topic. No, I'm just kidding, by the way. But we were in the championship of the 110 meter hurdles. If you've ever run hurdles, it's quite the event. And the key is to get your timing down, your steps in between each hurdle. And you've got to get your positioning just right so that it almost looks effortless. And as you're flying over that hurdle, you really try and keep all of your momentum packed into just a small, sort of a small area. If your arms are out, and you can see in some of these hurdlers, their arms are out, you're going to lose momentum. And I want to talk about what happened and then tie this back at the end, because it's an analogy that stuck with me that sort of really has changed my life for just this one small brief moment. And that is that I was coming down to the line. I'd worked so hard. I really, my coaches didn't think that I would even have a chance at winning the state championship. And as we crossed the line, there were 3 of us that crossed the line exactly at the same time. In fact, it was such a photo finish that they blew it up on a computer, and they watched it for about a half an hour trying to figure out who actually won this darn thing. And at one point they're looking and they're saying, oh, he won, and the other one, his shoulder's just ahead of the other one. And the other one said, oh, no, I think his eyebrow is ahead of the other one. And it's supposed to be your shoulders, not your head, that crosses. And what they realized was that they finally gave it to one person whose shoulder was just barely ahead. And then for second place, they said, we really can't figure it out. We're gonna declare it a tie. But you didn't have ties back then. Now they actually have ties. And so they gave the first, second, and third place. I missed first place by 3/100th of a second, but I missed second place by 1,000th of a second. And it was exhilarating that that I finished in the top 3, but it was also, it left me really wondering, what could I have done a little bit differently to actually have won state? How did I miss by, 3/100ths of a second? So I want you to think about that for a minute as you think about what's going on. And I think am I on pause now? Am I not sharing? I'm not sharing right now, am I? Yeah. So I want you to think about that and put that in the back of your head as we talk. So a little bit about Sodexo. Sodexo, those who don't know, we're the 17th largest company in the world. We serve 100 million consumers every single day. So this is places like airports, lounges, stadiums. So lots of stadiums around the world. In fact, one of our highlights was this. We put in place the first ever female chef at a Super Bowl. We're big on diversity, as you just heard in the last discussion. And we pride ourselves in being one of the most diverse companies on the planet. We have almost 500,000 employees. So we have 480,000 employees. We do about $23 billion in revenue. But one of the things we did, so if you go to stadiums, when this was at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, we had the first female chef there. She got lots of notoriety. We did some cool things, like we recycled 5,000 pounds of aluminum at the stadium. We were 99% plastic free, and we rescued 30,000 pounds of food waste. We're big right now on rescuing food. We've been ranked the #1 company in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index for years. And that's, we take pride in all those things. So that's who Sodexo is. But some interesting things started happening along the way. And that is that years ago, I was part of a big deal. Let me give you just a quick story. So years ago, we were part of a big deal. And this was one of those deals that really makes or breaks the company. And we were all excited about it, and it was coming down to the wire. And we thought we had it in the bag. And as we were working on that, we got those dreaded words that, as you sort of get to the end, that it's not a fit. And you're like, well, what in the world does that mean? It's not a fit. And what we realized, that we were not modernized enough. But as we started to do the surveys and we started to ask the questions, we did the customer survey, win-loss survey, and we started to ask the questions, we found out some interesting things. And that is that our sales process didn't meet their buying experience. Now think about that for a minute. I'm going to give you some ahas today, but there's 3 main takeaways I want to focus on in this transformation that we had. But our first big aha, and the first big aha that I'll share with you, is that it's not about your sales process. It's about their buyer experience. What we realized is that we were forcing people down a process that we thought was a good fit for us. We thought was a good fit for our version of CRM. And we had all these rules. We had all these steps that we had to follow. We had committees that would then, would evaluate our pricing and our margin. Well, can we do this deal or can we not? There were times where we would make customers wait almost 10 days when they wanted a response the next day about, hey, what about a legal change on this contract? We would make them wait because we had to fit it into our process. And we realized, so this first big aha I want you to take away is it's not about your process. It's about their buyer experience. And so we learned from that and we started to make some changes immediately. And this transformation got really interesting really fast. But it started with one person I've come to appreciate a lot, and her name's Sophie Ballon. And Sophie is the chairwoman. Yes, we have a chairwoman. And I said that. We have a chairwoman of the board. I don't know that you can take as many companies or that many companies as large as ours and as big as ours and as robust as ours, as diverse as ours, and even say around the globe they have a chairwoman. But it started with her, and she started making some immediate changes to the way we thought and to the way we practiced. And so some things came out of that. One of the studies that was really interesting was in 2018, we had 300, we interviewed about 300 of our salespeople. And we realized, I'll put this full screen to make it a little bit bigger, but they interacted only 38% of the time with the customer. So again, you think about, it's not about our process, it's about their experience. Well, their experience was not great because we were not even spending that much time with them. Another thing that an interesting piece of data that came out was said that we had in this 2018 study, we paid some big dollars for this. We used some of the consultants, is that we weren't moving at the customer speed when, for example, even when leads came in. So, I mean, here you have customers that we're saying, look, I'm submitting leads to you and you're really not following up in any fashion fast enough. Or when I have questions, in the sales process, you're just not following up fast enough. That's not what we're seeing against your competitors, but two other companies. And so that was really interesting. And so we went to work on a couple of these things. We ended up defining our sales operations and our sales enablement. So we split, so this is a chart we made. We said, this is sales enablement and sales ops. And we actually created these areas for the company. They didn't exist. Imagine that, a company as large as ours where we didn't have sales enablement and sales operations. And so we created that. Happy to share this chart, but it's nothing you probably don't all know. But here were some of the results. And when I'm going to show the results, and then I'm going to go backwards and kind of peel this apart. But what we realized from the results immediately is some big impacts. One is we took a response time of 2 weeks on leads down to 5 minutes. I'm happy to say that was one of the very first things I did was we started listening to voice. It's so sad. I got one of the first days in this role. They said, hey, Ryan, come run we need to build this whole new digital marketing sales engine. Come help us. And so I said, sure, I'd love to. And so moved into this role and we started listening to voicemails, voicemails that had sat in who knows what. I mean, we had 10 different numbers you'd call to try and get a hold of anybody. We started listening to the voicemails in these numbers and realized on some of them, it was months that they hadn't been called back. So but the average was 2 weeks. We took it down to 5 minutes. We freed up thousands of selling hours for our team. So we started reconfiguring the way that we allowed our teams and the meetings and the way that they work. And we said, listen, come in and spend more time with the customers. Listen. We started creating pipeline visibility. In fact, one of the first things we realized, we didn't have a CRM globally that we could put in place that we were using across the board. So we actually put in Salesforce, and I give all the credit to my peer Ann Precario and literally launched Salesforce for this massive company in record time. In fact, they said we have never had someone put it in as fast as you. And we could have a whole different session on how she was able to do that. But we started moving to coaching, started coaching our managers. We changed the sales manager mentality. But because we made that pipeline visible, it increased the lead generation campaigns. We started picking up on that. And we got our new business improved dramatically. So this is what's happened in sort of the last 18 months, but I want to go backwards and just highlight, sort of how we got there, because it's really interesting. It's really interesting. I'm just going to come off camera for a minute on how we actually got there and what this means for the company. I was part of this transformation. when we started seeing what had happened, we went back to a model that most companies are part of, and that is what we call the the QBR. I think you've all been part of QBRs. But the quarterly business review is this place where I think the rubber meets the road. So I'm talking, when I say quarterly business review, the QBR, I'm talking about the concept of an internal quarterly business review. And there's sort of three main things that have to happen in a QBR. Let me see. I think I've got a slide on this. But in the QBR, you're basically, no, I didn't have a slide on this, but I'll just, oh, here we go. Yeah. Quarterly business review. There's three main things that you want to get out of a QBR. And they're just, it's the basics. But the three things of any good QBR is, what did I accomplish last quarter? What am I going to accomplish this quarter? So my forecast. And what do I need to accomplish it? What am I going to accomplish? What did I accomplish? What am I going to accomplish? And what do I need to accomplish it? And by the way, as listeners, let me just give you, and well, listeners, leaders here, contributors, students, think about this for a minute. That last question is the most important one. And the reason why is, we as salespeople, we forget to quantify so often why it is we need something. When you're in a QBR, one of the greatest things that I've learned is that if sales reps can actually quantify why they need something, life gets a whole lot better. An example of this, I had, so I was in part of a QBR with a company called Fusion.io, and we were just about to go public. It was super fun. We were growing like crazy. And our VP of Asia stood up and he says, listen, he says, I have $30 million on the line right now. And the CEO got excited and said, okay, how do we close it? And the VP says, I've been asking for a website in Chinese for 4 months and I don't have it. And you won't get $30 million until I have that website. Now that was a quantified ask. This is what I need to accomplish it. And you should see how quick the CEO perked up and said, well, why don't you have it? And pointed over, and the VP of marketing said, well, I thought we were working on that. And he pointed over to the director, and she said, well, I thought and all of a sudden you should see how quickly that problem got resolved. How quick do you think it was? Within 2 weeks, we had a website in Chinese. And I use that example to say, as sales leaders, let's help our people qualify and quantify what it is they actually need. And that the way that happens is in the QBR. If you're a contributor on this call, don't go into QBR not knowing why you need it, because you're a business owner. You own your business, whether it's a territory or product, whatever it be, but you own your business. All right, so that's enough about QBR. So I was listening to the, I was going through this QBR, and I realized something. It was my 75th QBR. It was my 75th QBR. I was thinking, how in the world did I get here? And I started listening for, this was early on in this transformation of Sodexo. And I started realizing that after my 75th QBR, there were three very distinct reasons why people were missing the number. It started to kind of all of a sudden click and make sense to me. And I'm going to share how this works, because I ended up bringing this over I ended up making a big change at Sodexo in the way that we think about it. If we could get on chat for a minute, I'd love to just see, what do you think the reasons are? Just curious. Tell me the reasons you think, either whether you're a sales leader or you're a contributor, you've been part of the QBR. What do you think are the most common reasons why someone says they missed the number? Now, these are not excuses, but these are real reasons. When someone stands up and says, I missed the number, what do you think the reasons are? Do we have chat on here? I didn't even ask. Can we do that?
We do.
Yeah. So let's get on chat. I'm going to ask you all, just jump on chat for a minute and tell me, what do you think the reasons are? Let's see, I'll pull up my chat. Why do you think people said they missed the number? You've all been in QBRs. You've all been listening. I don't know why I don't see my chat window there. Let me see if I can pop out of this. Are answers coming in, Dr. Dover?
They are.
Okay.
So we've got support from marketing, product sucks, time management, headcount, pricing is too high, time management again, pricing, price was too high, COVID, economic shock, internal client issues, internal politics, security, COVID or someone else's fault, focused on the wrong non-selling activities. Every part of the organization was not on board with the plan in the first place.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, those are excellent reasons. People aren't on board. We weren't aligned. I heard price in there. Price is a very, very common one. Product. How often do we start to hear that? Well, it's the product. One I didn't hear, Stephanie, and you tell me if it was in there. Did we hear pipeline?
No.
Oh, interesting. That's unusual. I'll tell you why in just a minute, but that's unusual. Okay, so the survey, what are the top reasons salespeople give when they miss their number? It's interesting that we talk about this for just a minute because what I realized as I was going through these results is I started hearing three very distinct things, and I actually started taking notes, and I have notes from all my QBRs. I went back and I started looking at them and I said, oh, that's interesting that these sort of line up. And I'll give you aha number 2. I love Tiffany Bova. Tiffany came and spoke with us and recently, and she said, listen, and aha number 2 was about the ROI, quantifying the ROI. Aha number 3 is, in the simplest terms, a company makes things and sells things, and everything else supports those functions. And we had a great discussion with Tiffany. She said, listen, at the end of the day, the bottom line is you either make things or you sell things. And I love it because in the QBR that starts to become real. And as I was listening to these things, I started hearing price a lot. And I realized that price actually wasn't one of the reasons. And I'll tell you why. And then I want to jump into pipeline and go back to that one. But price, I'll tell you why I don't think price is a valid reason. And the reason I say that is because price is equal. Here's the price formula that I shared this on LinkedIn recently. The price formula is that price is equal to the perceived value. And the perceived value is equal to the perception of your product's outcomes, plus the perception of your company, plus the perception of you. So think about that for a minute. Price is equal to perceived value. I pay what I perceive the iPhone is worth, period. How do I get there? Well, I get there because I perceive that the product, the iPhone, will give me certain things. But I also appreciate Apple. I think Apple's a good company that's been well run. I know Steve Wozniak. I used to work with Steve. I think, wow, Steve's a great guy. And then when I went to the store, I had a great experience with that person. She really knew her stuff. So think about that for a minute. That's the price formula that I believe exists. Well, the reason then why price it shouldn't actually be the foundation, or it shouldn't be a real reason of why we missed a number, is because we're not dealing with price as the reason. We're dealing with perceived value, and perceived value comes from them. It comes from the salespeople plus your company. So I changed that one, what I called, but I realized then is that's really productivity. I need to get my salespeople to work smarter, to work harder. I need to get my digital marketing teams to build value and to show productivity. I need to get everyone else. I need everyone to help build this value for me. And so it's really, I shifted out and I said, listen, price can't actually be a reason. And what I realized was that there were 3 distinct reasons, like I shared. The first one, and you didn't say it here, but the first one, and let me go back. I realized I wasn't sharing that slide. My apologies. So this is the price formula. Perception of your product's outcomes, perception of your company, plus perception of you. That's really where they're getting price from. And so that helped me then quantify. There were 3 very distinct reasons why we were missing the number. And first one was pipeline. We simply didn't have enough pipeline. Second was the productivity. And that's where I erased price and said, it's not price, it's productivity. It's how good are the people at showing the value. And then the third one was actually product. So these became my 3 Ps. We made a shift within Sodexo to start to focus on these 3 Ps, and it's made a ton of difference. And we've got people to start to think about this. And just, this is where I want you to take some notes. Just start thinking, how can I as a contributor or leader start thinking in these 3 areas? Are these really the reasons why people miss? Because the fundamental question exists. If these are the reasons that we miss, then are these the same reasons we can hit the number? Let me ask that again. If these are the reasons why we're missing, could they also be the way in which we could hit the number? In other words, could these be the reasons we could grow? And the answer is emphatically yes. And I like to think of it, these 3 work in unison. They work as a team. I love this concept of draft horses. Anyone know how many pounds a draft horse can pull? Let's see if anyone can win for a gold star. Put it in chat. How many pounds can a draft horse pull?
Is it 2,000?
Someone said 2,000. This is the point where you just put it into Siri, right?
Double its weight.
Yeah. So the question is there is some truth to double its weight, but a draft horse can pull 8,000 pounds. One draft horse can pull 8,000 pounds, according to most of the science, and there's probably some variable in there. So what can 2 draft horses pull? 16,000 pounds, right? 2 draft horses, each pulling their weight of 8,000 pounds, can pull 16,000 pounds, except that's not right. 2 draft horses can actually pull 24,000 pounds. Wait, Ryan, you just said 2 draft horses could. Yeah, I did. One of the greatest mysteries in life is this concept of what happens when we're working together. What happens when we're working in unison? What happens when a team is actually working synergistically? Can they accomplish more than the sum of the individual parts? That's a mystery. That's what every leader has to figure it out. By the way, that's every leader's responsibility, is how do I get a team to really perform at greatness? It turns out that 2 draft horses, and any number of draft horses to that degree, when working in unison, can actually pull a third, 30% more than their weight. So they are able to perform 2 draft horses, 24,000 pounds just by working together. That means they're taking steps together. That means they're harnessed together. You know the analogy. You figure it out from here. The reason, and that's my aha number 4. So aha number 4 is really when working together, we accomplish more than when working alone. And there's huge value to that. So I started thinking about that with these 3 Ps. Does that apply? Well, it absolutely does. And so pipeline and productivity and product have to be balanced. So what we started looking at in Sodexo is, as we're making this transformation, we're focusing on these 3 areas, and we've been doing this now for the last year and a half simultaneously. It's gotten into everyone's heads, and this is what I want you to take away is, as a contributor, as a leader, can we think in terms of these 3? So for example, you might be in a meeting where someone says, hey, we've got a pricing problem, and you want to think for a minute, is it a pricing problem? Or is it is it my people being able to explain the value? Is it a pricing problem, or is it pipeline? Do we actually need more pipeline? Or is my product not up to speed yet? And so I like to think of these basically they have to be in unison to get more. Now, what I mean by that is if one starts to get bigger, it actually puts pressure, and I call this a forcing function. So these forcing functions are something we have to pay attention to. But think about it as a forcing function. You have to figure out when one puts pressure, how to balance the other 2. What I mean is, for example, if I get a big pipeline, let's say I go out and find a ton of pipeline, and yet my product's not there, and my salespeople aren't able to close the pipeline, well, then I have to immediately balance those. So I call them forcing functions. Let's reverse it for a minute. What happens if I've got really, really good salespeople? I've hired the best. I know they're good. They're super productive, and they don't have great product to sell. What does it do? It puts pressure. Hey, get me a better product. I need the right features. We need the right value. And oh, by the way, go get me pipeline. So the reason why I was surprised we didn't hear pipeline is I've had great salespeople in my organization. Their number one reason in the QBR for missing the numbers, they stand up and say, well, I don't have enough pipeline. And they're right. You want good people, good productive people to have pipeline. And then think about product. Let's say you're a startup. Maybe you're a startup listening to this call today. Like, we've built great product. We went out and got product market fit. We did our problem solution interviews. We got everything just right. I got to go get a pipeline, and I got to get people who can sell this because I got a great product. So see how the three start working together. So we call this a forcing function. So you want to keep this completely balanced. I'll give you an example, a couple examples of this. So for example, let's say I have $100 million in pipeline. I have an ACV of 250K. I'm assigning a sales quota of 1.25 million per rep and a close ratio of 30%. So we've been using this example. I'll show you these two examples, and we've been using this formula as we kind of go through at Sodexo. So, well, that equals, just doing the math on the paper there, you can see that equals 30 million booked in ARR, 120 deals booked per year, and a team of 24 sales reps. So pretty easy math. But what happens when I start to increase just one of those? So let's just imagine for a minute, I raised 100 million pipeline. I put 500 million in pipeline. I kept everything else equal. So the ACV stayed the same. The sales quota stayed the same. What do you think is going to happen? Well, easy. Just doing the math, I got 150 million booked in ARR because I had a bigger pipeline, which equaled 600 deals. Why? Because my ACV was exactly the same. And now, if I'm still keeping a 1.25 million as the quota, then I need 120 sales reps. But the idea was that we needed to get more efficient. We needed to allow our sellers to be that much better and that good during this transformation. So think about what happens here if I start to change all three. So 5x growth is what you get. But let's just look for a minute what happens if I start to change all three, which is what we started to do. So we immediately went to task. And in fact, this kind of interesting thing happened. I said to my boss is the chief revenue officer, chief sales and marketing officer at Sodexo. His name's Bruno, great guy from Belgium. And I said, Bruno, I have a theory, right? Let's test this. Let's test the 3 Ps. I said, let's first just put pressure on pipeline, meaning let's make it so big and such a factor at the company that it's going to expose, it's going to put pressure on our offer, our products, and how good our salespeople are, our productivity. I said, let's just try it. We have tripled the pipeline during the pandemic. So we spent money on this, and guess what it's doing? It's doing exactly what we thought it'd do. Now everyone's building their FY22 plans, and they're saying, well, hey, do we have the right salespeople, or where's enablement? Do we have enough people that can close these deals? It turns out we might have a closing problem all of a sudden. Why? Because we exposed it with pipeline. And people are now asking about we call them offers at Sodexo, not product. We're saying, what's going on with the offers? How do we make those stronger? So let me show you what it's about to do. And this is a hypothetical, but it's what happens is, let's imagine.
Brian,
yes.
You're at a 2-minute, just so you know.
Okay. So let's imagine that I could increase pipeline and I could increase my ACV, because why? I got better sales reps, which means I could improve the quota of the sales rep. And let's imagine my close ratio went from 30% to 35%. I'm working all three right now. I got better products, so it could sell at a higher ACV. Look what happened. I got 175 million in booked in ARR, so I'm even higher than my last scenario. But I have fewer deals. Why? Because the ACV went up. My close ratio went up. Therefore, I don't need 120 sales reps, I only need 87. So what we realized is not only could we start to transform by these 3 Ps and grow the company, but we could do it at a lower cost. This has been the biggest aha for us, best part of our transformation. All right. So this is how the 3 Ps work, and I want you to keep them in unison. Now, I'll share some metrics after that I think you should track in each of the 3 Ps. But as leaders, I want you just to think this, it worked for us. I hope this could work for you. Think in terms of pipeline, product, and productivity and balancing those three. All right. I'm going to end with an example. I'm going to go back to this idea of sort of tie this together with this idea of track. When I was, after the state championship, I got asked to go run in college, and I was super excited about it. When I got to college, I had the Olympic track coach from the I want to say it was the 88, maybe it was 86 Olympic, the men's Olympic. I think it was he did hurdles and the distance. So he was actually kind of this weird hybrid of hurdles and distance coach. His name was Chick Hislop. Chick was amazing. He was an all-star coach, won a lot of awards, and he shoved me down into what we call the hurdle stretch. And the hurdle stretch is an L7. So your front leg makes an L, and then your back leg's making a 7. And he shoved me so hard into that tears welled up into my eyes. And every day he did this for about 3 weeks. And he'd come by and say, "Bott, you don't get it. You're not doing this right. How did you even finish in that high school race?" And I thought this was all for naught. I didn't understand why he was doing it. When I went out and ran that first hurdle race in college, any questions or any idea how much time I took off?
We're at time, Ryan. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good. Can I just end with that one last pause?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. And I took off 6/10 off my time. And my point here, why I want to tell you this, is it was all about stretching. I couldn't believe that just learning how to stretch made me a winner. I would have won the state championship had I stretched. And I made this goal. I said, I never want to lose a race again in life because I didn't stretch myself. Those 3 P's might be a little uncomfortable. We're stretching at Sodexo to get there, but it's making us winners. And that's what I'll leave you with. So thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. That's amazing. What a great story, and I appreciate it's a fascinating and amazing story. Ryan, if they want to get a hold of you, could you put your contact, or is the best way LinkedIn or some other way to contact you?
LinkedIn is still the best, but I'll put it in chat if I can. I don't know why my chat's not visible. I'll see that. It's ryan.bott@sodexo.com.